What if the most meaningful use of technology wasn't to disrupt or dominate a market, but simply to deliver help to those who need it, faster and with more dignity? Well, today I'm joined by Brittany Christenson. She's the CEO of AidKit, a woman-led public benefit corporation that is quietly transforming how aid is delivered across the US. And while Silicon Valley often races to build the next unicorn, what I love about AidKit is that they're focused on something far more grounded. Solving a real problem, bringing modern, secure and scalable technology to the most overlooked people in our communities. And in today's conversation, Brittany will share how AidKit has evolved from a non-profit initiative during the pandemic into a for-profit B Corp, without ever compromising its values. From distributing $330 million in aid cover to 90,000 people, and even launching the country's largest guaranteed income pilot, AidKit is proving that mission-aligned technology can operate at scale, but most importantly of all, and most excitingly of all, staying human. So together we will explore what that trust looks like in public sector tech, how AidKit uses design and community feedback to bake dignity into every application, and why Brittany believes you should never shy away from hiring people that are more qualified than yourself. So, how do you build software that people trust, especially when they are the most vulnerable in our society and communities? And what does it take to lead a tech company where scale never comes at the cost of a human soul? These are just a few of the reasons that I'm excited to introduce you to Brittany Christenson. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Brittany Christenson and I'm the CEO here at AidKit. We're a public benefits corporation that focuses on getting aid into the hands of vulnerable communities. So we are basically a tech platform, and we're trying to bring the best, latest technology to the social impact sector.
It's such powerful work that you're doing there, incredibly important. And one of the things that I saw before you joined me on the podcast today is you've also recently achieved B Corp certification. So what does that milestone mean to you personally? And how does it reflect on some of those core values in which AidKit was built on?
Yeah, we're really excited about the B Corp certification. We started out as actually a nonprofit initiative during the pandemic. So the social impact has always been in our blood. And, we're about 5 years into the adventure now, and our co-founder and chief impact officer, Katrina Van Gass, has been really on top of helping us make sure that we're structurally creating the incentives that will help us stay true to our mission in the long haul. So for us, it's all about, making sure that the people and planet and profits are all in balance and really watching that triple bottom line.
Now, one of the big mottos of this podcast is technology works best when it brings people together. And that's something that you're living and breathing in your work, because I was reading again before you came on that you said aid is the word that we use to describe how we help each other in community. So how has that philosophy shaped AidKit's technology and its approach to partnership with governments and non-profit? Because there's so much talk around AI and technology dehumanizing people, but we don't hear enough great stories like this where you're using technology to really make a difference.
Thanks. Yeah, at AidKit, we've always been really close to the communities we serve. So we have several community advisory councils that we engage, and we're always trying to make something that works really, really well for the people who need it. So whether that's the program administrators on the government side, or whether it's the individuals that need help, we have, these really tight feedback loops. And for us, it's all about making it easier in that moment of need to ask for help in a way that feels dignified. And so we do that by, making it pretty similar to any modern experience you'd have in an app. But instead of you having to jump a bunch of hoops and fight with government forms that are just, quite frankly, oftentimes burdensome PDFs that ask a lot of repetitive or irrelevant questions with no conditional logic, now you're suddenly in a position where applying is easy and maybe even enjoyable, and the amount of documentation you have to provide is minimal. And then on the back end, the people that you're applying for aid through, usually a government or a nonprofit, they're processing your application quickly and they're giving you status updates, and their job is easier and they're able to better serve you because the platform is built with all of those needs in mind and with those people at the table who actually use it.
And we're approaching 3,500 interviews on this podcast. And over the years, I've heard many innovation stories, and most of them, I would say, focus on things like speed and scale. One of the things that made AidKit stand out for me is how you emphasize dignity, transparency, and equity. So I'm curious, what are the biggest barriers that you see in achieving or delivering these values through tech-driven aid delivery? Anything you can share around that?
Yeah, so transparency is really, really important, and it means a couple of different things. First of all, when aid programs are being run, there's usually people who are providing the funds, whether that's philanthropic donors or taxpayers through their government entities. And so being able to say with clarity how those funds are being distributed, being able to show that they're being distributed equitably, meaning it's not just the most tech savvy people who can quickly find the application and who are able to navigate a burdensome process, which, most aid programs today tend to favor those people that are more easily able to get through the process. So the transparency really allows for, accountability to those equity metrics, making sure that the limited funds are distributed in the fairest way possible for everyone involved. And dignity for us has really always been the core of what we do. There are a lot of people that have a really hard time, that are too proud to ask for help. And sometimes that's because they've experienced stigma in the past. And at the end of the day, we're all doing our best to get by, and it's hard. It's hard to ask for help. And so for us, we want to make that experience as enjoyable as possible. And we really look at the language that we use when we ask questions about need. And we also, we do this user testing, robust user testing with the populations that are going to be applying for aid. And they always flag really helpful things for us. Like, for example, we've done several very large programs providing direct cash assistance to unhoused individuals. And we learned in a very early session with our Community Advisory Council to start pretty early on with the question of, are you stably housed currently? And if they say no, then we're not going to bother them with residency verification, obviously. We're going to get creative and we're going to ask them if they can pinpoint where they generally stay on a map. Because that's when that system is built for you, it shows that you belong there. And so we try to bake that feeling of I belong here into all of the interfaces that we build.
And as you said a few moments ago, AidKit started out life as a non-profit initiative. So how was that origin? How did that influence your leadership decisions as you scale a mission-driven tech company in such a fast-moving market? Do you still look back and see how all that fell into place and influence your decisions today?
Yeah, so I come from a nonprofit background myself, and social impact is really important to everyone on our team. So it's always been who we are and what we're all about. The reason that we went from a nonprofit initiative to a startup is because we wanted to have the absolute best talent, especially engineering talent, that we could attract so that we could bring, Silicon Valley level tools to the social sector. And so to do that, we knew we couldn't pay the salaries, but we could give equity. And that helped us attract the talent we needed to build an incredibly cutting edge platform for the use cases that we service. And, in doing so, we always, since I joined 3.5 years ago, we've always talked about, what can we do to make sure that we aren't swayed into being more profit driven as we grow. And for us, that has been, maintaining board control, that has been having strong governance structure, that has been, having a strong set of values that we follow very closely. But more recently, we decided to get our B Corp certification, and we've been thinking a lot about the environment and AI environment and how we use AI, which models we select at which times, how liberally we use it, and just really trying to make sure that we're balancing our footprint with the positive social impact that we're having. So just trying to avoid any blind spots and really trying to show that it is possible to have a successful, sustainable business that is growing rapidly, that also stays true to its mission and values.
And you really are making a difference with your work and technology, and you've helped administer groundbreaking programs like Cook County's Guaranteed Income Pilot and the Homeowners Relief Fund. And I'm curious, from all the work that you're doing here, what have you learned about trust, scale, and impact from these high-stake implementations? You must have had to learn fast, but anything you can share there?
Absolutely. So we found that especially when you're working with government, trust is absolutely key. And I love the saying that work progresses at the speed of trust. And when you're working with governments, they have entire communities to think about, and they have the elected officials that they might report to think about, and they've got the news media to think about. So they're under a lot of pressure. And what we try to do and what we found is most helpful is just show up with some serious technical expertise and some very strong recommendations for how to proceed, because they're juggling dozens of initiatives and we get the opportunity to focus on just one. So for us, we build trust by showing, number one, that we are competent. Number two, that they are competent. We always try to reflect that competency in the way we interact with our partners. And just really centering on the shared goals of a program. And so I think when you put those outcomes first for the people that you're serving together and you can show that competence, then trust comes pretty naturally in our industry. On the scale side, for us, that's all about, having smooth launches. So oftentimes the programs that we launch with our partners in government are really large scale, really high stakes. They're on the news. There's hundreds of thousands of people logging in to try to apply sometimes on the very first day applications open. So we'd make sure that our systems are absolutely ready for it, that there is as minimal a chance as possible of a crash, and really just being able to, handle the volume. And it's not just the technical volume, which is something any tech company deals with, but it's the human volume as well, because we and our partners also provide support. And so we're often engaging with community-based organizations on the ground so that those folks that don't have a cell phone or don't have the internet or live in a rural area and don't have broadband, so they have a way in as well. And also, we're often dealing with between 5 and 14 languages for all of these programs. So making sure that we have the humans ready to answer the phone and be able to provide that dignified support. So that scale question is one that we think about a lot, and trying to keep that beautiful high touch interaction intact, even when you're dealing with a really high volume program. And then to your last point on impact, for us, that's just the bottom line. We don't get involved if there's not a great opportunity for impact. And at the end of the day, that's what we're chasing, is to have an impact at scale.
And another phrase that we hear a lot is fast, equitable, and secure. Often gets used in policy circles, but AidKit, you have to make this very real and bring it to life through software. So what does that look like behind the scenes when you're building and deploying aid infrastructure?
That's a great question. And I think that one of the challenges of moving quickly is that there are a lot of moving parts and considerations for every single program. And just to give you an example, you can imagine a program that is serving a really diverse city, and maybe about half of the city is eligible based on the criteria. So maybe it's folks who have under 100% of the federal poverty level. Maybe it's folks also who live anywhere within the city limits. And maybe they've had to have some kind of impact from a natural disaster or pandemic. So you've got this kind of map of who you're trying to serve, and you need to figure out a way to create pathways in for anybody in that eligible population who may need to get in. So like I mentioned before, you need to do residency verification on someone who might not have an address at all. You might need to do identity verification on someone who has no ID document. You need to do income verification on people that have no jobs. And so there's a ton of nuance there. And so when you want to move fast and equitably, you really have to kind of take all of those pathways into account, and you need to build something that serves everyone in the community, especially the most vulnerable. And we are getting faster and faster and faster at this. In our early years, it took about 8 to 12 weeks to stand up a new program that was really customized to the community. Now we're doing it in 2 weeks or less. And that's going to continue to shrink. And that's because we know what this looks like, we know what the steps are, and we're able to deliver quality that's really unparalleled. On the point of security, it's absolutely foundational to our platform that we're able to protect people's data and keep it secure. And part of that is because we work with individuals who may have a history of incarceration, folks who might live in mixed status households, folks who otherwise would be put in a vulnerable position if their data were accessed. And so we do everything in an end-to-end environment. Everything's encrypted. We're SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We're HIPAA certified. So we really pride ourselves on being a place that governments can trust and applicants can trust to share their data. We have no kind of ad model or selling model. All of the data that we get stays private within our platform.
And one of the things I try and do on this podcast every day is get people thinking differently about how the impact that tech is having on areas that we don't associate with technology. And listening to your story today, from that guaranteed income pilot, homeowners relief fund, giving back to the community, supporting the community, these are areas we don't automatically associate with tech. So is there anything you can share around the kind of difference that technology, or how technology is making a difference in your work here?
Yeah, AidKit is an absolutely tech-first platform. And so while we're solving problems of real people in community, we're doing so with tech because we're dealing with a lot of people. And so we're dealing with a lot of data. And anytime you're dealing with a lot of data, tech can be an incredible accelerant. For example, if you imagine a scenario where folks are applying for aid through a paper form or even a digitized form that then has to be kind of processed, what you end up with is a really slow process where you don't get that opportunity to look across the data set and figure out how to equitably distribute the funds. And so it's incredibly important in our industry. And the other, elephant in the room is fraud. But there are absolutely folks out there that try to take advantage of aid programs and government benefit programs. And when they do, technology makes it much easier, more accurate, and faster to catch those individuals. So, we're able to do things like monitor the IP address and see if there's a bunch of applications coming from one location. Make sure that everybody that gets paid in the program is a unique individual who's had their identity verified. We're also able to detect deep fakes. We're seeing a lot more deep fakes like ID photos and selfies, and even falsified documents. And so being able to find those so that you can safeguard the funds for the folks that really are in need is something that would be impossible at this scale without technology.
It's so inspiring, the work that you're doing here, the impact you're having, the difference that you're making. And we will have the ear of people listening all around the world, many of which might want to follow in your footsteps or maybe just starting to already. So for those people listening, what advice would you give to other founders or public sector leaders who equally want to balance operational efficiency with deep social impact using technology, especially in moments of crisis or rapid deployment? From everything that you've learned, anything you'd pass on there?
Yeah, the advice that I would give to other founders in the social impact tech space is don't compromise. Keep your values and keep your mission at the core and really make sure that it's articulated in a way where it can be your compass. And then don't compromise. And funding is hard and new customers are hard. It's all hard. But if you stay true to that core of your purpose, what you're going to find is that over time, it's going to be a lot easier to manage a growing business because you always know what to do. You can go right back to that compass and it will help you make every decision. It can be tempting when you get business opportunities that are outside of your mission area, but very well within your technical capabilities. And I've seen many social impact company kind of take a right turn and move towards those more profitable opportunities. But I would just say that the market is watching when you're in social impact, and folks want to see that you really are true to what you say you are. And so, just be absolutely uncompromising in your mission. And the other thing I would say is surround yourself by great people and don't give in to imposter syndrome. It's really, really critical to always be kind of raising the bar on the talent within your company. And, I have people on my team that are unfathomably more qualified than I am in different areas of the business. And that can be a little bit intimidating at first, but if you have to have the confidence to hire people that are better than you, because that's how you grow as well as a leader. And that's how you're able to bring a product to market that is really transformational and can have those outcomes that you're looking for in the social impact space.
Wow, I absolutely love how you're using technology here to make social impact and make such a difference on the community. It's inspiring work, and I do hope people listening will follow your lead here and do the thing in their own community by leveraging technology. So thank you for sharing your story and your invaluable insights. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to share one final gift to everyone listening, and that is a song for our Spotify playlist that means something to you that we can add there. Guilty pleasures are allowed, or a book for our Amazon wish list. All I'm going to ask is, what would you like to leave and why?
Yeah, I'd like to leave The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. It's one of my favorite business books, and I think that it's, especially for founders looking to get into social impact, it really shows you how to organize your team in a way that's going to make a huge difference. And it's an easy, fun read that you can do in a day.
Awesome. Well, I'll get that added straight to our Amazon wish list. And of course, anyone inspired by your work at AidKit, maybe they want to dig a little bit deeper, start a conversation with you, help, or anything in between. Where would you like to point everyone?
Yeah, so we're hiring, and we're also always looking for new collaborators, and you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. That's the best way to get a hold of us. We also have some, contact forms on our website, and we answer every single incoming form. So love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, I'll add a link to make it nice and easy for people to find you. And a couple of numbers, big numbers that we didn't mention in our interview there, because AidKit has just hit $330 million in disbursements. And you've also recently had your biggest week ever. Just 2 weeks ago, before we recorded this podcast, you've distributed $9 million in a single week. Inspiring work, and I love how you're using technology to deliver that. But just thank you for taking the time to share your story today.
Thank you, Neil. It's my pleasure.
I think Brittany's story is a reminder that technology's greatest potential often lies in the small, invisible moments, the frictionless application, the fast response, the dignified experience. All these things make someone feel seen, not scrutinised. And what stood out for me was how AidKit treats trust, not just as a requirement, but as a design principle. Whether that be robust encryption, multilingual support, to deeply human-centred design choices, this is software that serves, not surveils. So if you're listening to this today and you're building in the public sector or wondering, how can I hold on to my mission as I scale? I genuinely hope that Brittany's insights stay with you. And if you've ever questioned whether tech can be a force for community care, now you've got your answer. But what do you think? Could more founders strike the balance between operational excellence and social responsibility? Love to hear your thoughts on this. So please, techblogwriteroutlook.com, LinkedIn, X, Instagram. I'm just at Neil C. Hughes. Let me know your thoughts. Technology does work best when it brings people together, and Brittany's story proves that technology can have a huge positive impact on our own communities and in society at large. And on that note, I'm going to walk off into the sunset and hope you will join myself, Brittany, and everyone listening that's working in this field in trying to use technology to make a difference. But that's it for today. So thank you for listening, and I'll speak with you all again very soon. Bye for now.